Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and I've got great news for you all. I can hear myself inside my own head. In other words, I finally got my mixer up and running. It only took forever because the stupid pawn shop sold it to me without the correct power hookup. So this is the very first video where I have a real-time monitor of exactly how I sound in my headphones. I love it. No giant hiss, don't have to use a noise filter, which cuts off the beginning and end of everything I say. You probably didn't notice any of this, but trust me when I say it is slightly improved and I love it. This is going to make all my videos just so much easier to record. Speaking of easy to record, I'm having a terrible time trying to record my other video about shuffling, but it is coming down the pipe eventually. Just wait for it. If you're following me on Twitter, you know that I actually did shoot it already, and it sucked, so I'm deleting all of it and starting over. But that's what separates a really crappy YouTuber from a kind of okay YouTuber. Well, now that I've spent the last 15 minutes talking to myself and playing with all the buttons on the mixer, it's time for MTG Mistakes Part 22. Now, a lot of people make this particular mistake when they're starting out playing Magic because they just don't have a feel for how games go and, what early game, mid game, and late game mean and how to treat them. The number one problem that people have is they treat their life total like it's the most important thing in the world, and it is, but you have to know when your life total is expendable. Now, I didn't want to make this video because there's just so many examples and so many different scenarios that I can't possibly just lay a blanket statement on it. I mean, you really just have to develop the ability to find out when your life total is just completely pointless, when you've got more than enough points and you're not in any kind of danger, and losing life points won't really affect the outcome of the game at all. And then other times where you're going to very much regret, losing those 2 life by bringing in a land untapped or whatever. Like, for example, if you're playing against a burn deck. I mean, burn decks need to get to 20. If you have even life gain of 10, they pretty much just burn themselves out if you're really lucky. That's one obvious example, and there are a couple more. I mean, people just miss this out of sheer carelessness, basically. If you're playing against an infect deck, there's a pretty high chance that they can't even touch your life total with any card in their entire deck. I would feel comfortable putting my life total down to 5 because I just don't think that they're within the zone of hitting me for 5 without infect counters. There's also combo decks obviously Splinter Twin. I always go to that one because that's the famous combo deck. It's an infinite combo, and until the combo goes off, they're pretty unlikely to hit you for 20. It's almost impossible. I mean, that deck didn't even bring out any creatures onto the field, and if it did, they were just for chump blocking or for extra card purposes, and they wouldn't even swing with it. So in that case, if you had a really good reason to drive down your life total just to accelerate the game, or, to take a hit, take a swing, whatever, let's say that they actually did swing at you and you're at 16, and you're like, oh man, I don't want to go down to 14, that's pretty low. You're playing against Splinter Twin. I mean, they aren't going to get the other 14 damage, trust me. It's either 1,000,000 damage or it's not, and that's that. So who cares about your life total? Don't worry about, spending 1 life on a fetch to go get a shock land that comes in untapped and you have to lose 2 life. In that case, you really shouldn't be afraid of taking, Shiv and Reef and tapping it for red 7 turns in a row to take 7 damage, just to get your spells off and get your deck going. So aside from the example of your opponent being an idiot that copies their deck off the internet so then you know exactly what's in it after you see the first 2 cards, let's go into a more typical scenario like Standard. There's kind of a list that I go through when I decide, is this worth taking the hit? Should I let this creature through? Is this a safe life total to let myself drop to? Or even should I cast a spell that, gains me 7 life and draws a card, or 6 I think is resupply, and then, kind of burn my entire turn because that's 5 or 6 mana. How likely am I to die? And that's really the starting point. How likely am I to die? What do they have on the field? How many cards did they have in their hand? And how many, boost cards or damage cards, direct damage? Based on every single card that you saw in the previous games, plus the ones you already saw in that game, how likely are they to be able to do the amount of damage equal to your life points in 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, or 4 turns? And then, as a second step, after you determine that, will they literally kill me on this swing or the next swing, you determine, hey, how much damage can I do to them and how quickly, now that obviously they don't have a blocker, minus vigilance, they just probably swung with something, you're thinking, oh, should I take the 4 damage or should I block it and lose a creature? Because I don't really want to lose a creature, and I'm at a lower life total than they are, but how long will it take me to hit their total life total if nothing happens? They don't do anything to stop it. So if you got 2 huge boosting spells in your hand, like a +4/+4, and they're at 9, you're good. I mean, you're probably going to kill him on the next counter swing. So yeah, take the hit. I mean, that's obvious. You would just look at your hand and say, I don't care. I'm going to beat him next turn. But a lot of people, they use that logic and then they don't think, well, what about 2 turns from now? Can I kill them in 2 turns? Or what about 3 turns? Can I outswing him before he outswings me? And just do the real quick math. You know, if he swings for 3 every single time, it'll take him X amount of turns to kill me if I never block. And then I can do this much damage in that time. Or think, okay, the next 3 combats, I'm going to take 3, then I can block on the 3rd one, save my remaining, 4 life points. That way I've got a margin of 1 plus an additional 3. Then I'll lose one of my creatures, but in the meantime, I would have done X damage to him, plus a boost spell, plus I've got 12 flash creatures in my deck, so I'll just stall and hope I pull one of them. That's a solid strategy. So I would let him through the first 2 times, even though it'll get you down to 4 life, because you're very confident that you can adjust the board state with something that you'll top deck. Now, besides, more combat creatures, haste creatures, something like that, just think in general, what is in my deck? What am I likely to top deck? So you think, hey, there's 20 of these, there's 8 of these, and there's 8 of these. And then some of them are already in the graveyard and some are already in my hand. So what am I likely to pull? There's like a 60% chance that the next card I pull will be this. How will that affect it? Is it a lifelinker? Like, do you have a lifelink heavy deck? You've got 16 lifelinkers and you just haven't pulled one yet. In that case, I would take all the hits because they don't know that you have lifelink and you're probably going to gain them back in the near future. So if they're just constantly just pounding you with like a 2/4 creature, 2/4, 2/4, 2/4, and if you block with your 2/2 he's nuked and you can't even kill the blocker, don't worry about your life total because you've got a whole bunch of ways in your deck to get that life back. Now, if you're playing like a counterspell deck where you're just playing blue control and the game gets all drawn out, in general, even before anybody shuffles their deck, okay, I really shouldn't take as many hits. I should really guard my life total a little bit more because I know the game's going to go on a while. And like I said, you can say, okay, what's going to happen next turn? What's going to happen 2 turns from now? Well, with the blue control deck, what's going to happen 10 turns from now? Who knows, but it's probably going to take that long because you're playing blue control. So in 10 turns, your opponent could do absolutely anything. You have no idea. And so it's completely out of your control. It's completely unpredictable. So it's like you don't know what's going to happen in the distant future, so don't take damage now because you don't know if it's safe. If you're playing red burn or super speed aggro, like you're playing like a werewolves deck where it's just aggro, or you're playing, what is that new Mr. Nibbles deck? I mean, Mr. Nibbles take every single hit that they swing at you. There is not a deck in Standard that can do more damage more quickly. You are absolutely, minus getting card screwed, likely to hit them for more damage than they can hit you for per turn. So you're going to win first, even if they went first. It's that bad of a deck on damage. There is actually this format called Solitaire. You should look it up, MTG Solitaire. It's like how much damage can you do in, I think, 10 turns against an invisible enemy with no cards, no creatures, no nothing, just a life total. I think Mr. Nibbles can do like well over 100. It's absolutely outrageous. I mean, it almost like sets the bar for Solitaire decks. You don't even need the 10 turns. I mean, if you just sit there and hoard cards and then unleash them all on like the 9th turn swing, it could be hundreds of damage. So you don't have to be running something as extreme as that, but if you've got giant creatures that come in quick, maybe some of them have haste, you can take hits more often because your creatures are more important. Because in general, your deck is going to deal out damage really quickly, and in general, their deck is probably not going to deal out damage as quickly. So your life total is way more expendable because you can burn theirs really quickly. And, that in general kind of feeds into what I said before. If you plan out what's going to happen in the next 3 turns, well, in general, your deck's going to just kick their butt in the next 3 turns. You're going to be doing tons of damage. Eventually, they're going to have to stop attacking, so there's no need to, chump block and trade and lose one of your attackers. That would be a stupid move. So a lot of these questions you ask yourself, a lot of things you go through in your head, they're really, really, similar. So it all just comes down to predicting the future. So there's what does my deck do versus what does their deck do, and then there's what's specifically going to happen in this match given the board state, and then there's specifically what's going to happen to my card draw, their card draw, and exactly, the creatures they have on the field. So you go from general to more specific and use all that information to help you make the decision. And of course, I've been saying, it's creature swinging. Do you block, do you not? Do you take the damage, do you not? This could be Crater's Claws for 8, do you take the damage or do you counter that spell? It's the same thing. If you take the 8 damage, then you've got, let's just say cancel, literally cancel. You've got to cancel around for the next creature that they bring out. So then you would say, hey, I could take this damage because, they have no creatures on the field. I could always cancel the next, Crater's Claws if that's what happens next. Otherwise, they've got a big, giant, scary red creature deck. I don't really care about the 7 damage. I should be really, really worried about what they bring out, so hold the counterspell for that. And from what I said so far, that sounds like exactly the opposite of what you would do. They're running a high aggro, high damage, red burn aggro creatures deck. You need to guard your life total like crazy, but you really, that's general. That's their deck type versus your deck type. When you get down to the specifics, how many cards do they have left in hand? And like I said, they have 0 creatures on the battlefield. So what are they going to do? They hit you down to, we'll say, 9 with it. What are they going to do the remaining 9 that you can't stop with your cancel? So in the specific question of what's going to happen in the next couple rounds, you would say, well, I'll just cancel whatever they do next turn. It's countered, never hits the battlefield, and now how are they going to do the damage? They only have 2 cards in hand, we'll say. In that particular case, you're probably going to win if you have 1 or 2 creatures on the field because you'll just keep swinging away at them. So now hopefully you've got an idea of when you should allow yourself to take damage versus when you should prevent taking damage and lose a counterspell, lose a creature via chump blocking or trading. You'll trade off something. Obviously, if there's no trade-off, if you've got a giant 0/7 wall and they're swinging with a 1/1, block that thing if you don't think it's a trap. Obviously if you can prevent damage, if you can prevent life total damage, do it. I mean, that's obvious. But when there's an obvious trade-off, you've got to make a decision. So I'm sure you've pretty much got it by now, but I have to point out the one thing that I specifically see people make a mistake on, and it's the first 3 turns of the game. So you've got like a 1/1 or a 2/2 on the field. We'll say a 2/2, it's turn 2. And then on their turn 2, because you went first, they drop in like a 3/1 with haste or just some ridiculously monstrous dash creature like that stupid Mardu thing. Oh my god, I hate that creature. So you're thinking, okay, I could kill it, I could trade. I really don't want to take 3 damage, and I'd be knocking out one of their 3/1s with a 2/2. That's a pretty good trade, right? Well, in general, definitely yes. The answer is absolutely yes. But what's the aggro level of your deck? Is that 2/2 considered pretty good because you're playing a blue deck and there just is no attack power in it? Not only are you not blocking them, so then they're tapped, excluding Vigilance. Vigilance is just one giant pain in your butt. If they're tapped, you can counterswing and do some damage. So it's like you're losing a creature if you block, so you're losing some aggro, you're losing some potential damage, and then you're also losing out on the opportunity to do some early game damage to their life total. So that's like 2 hits to your aggro level. That is exceptionally bad. If you know that your deck just doesn't have the attack power, you're going to need to get that in. So I would say take the 3 damage and deal the 2 damage, because damage is easy to come by with their deck and it's a lot harder to come by with yours. And if you're a little bit creature-like because you're playing blue control, you're really going to need to get that damage in and leave your creatures on the field, because you've got the rest of the game to try to stop him, bounce him back to hand, exile him, whatever you want to do. But a more drastic example is I've seen people bring out a 2/1 on like turn 1, and then somebody else brings out a 1/1. Okay, turn cycle again, they swing with their 1/1 and the other person blocks with their 2/1 because they just cannot take 1 damage. They could say, oh, it's a really evenly matched, set of decks, so every little point of damage counts. So I'm going to chump block on turn 1 because I can't go to 19. 19? You can't go down 1. I mean, 19 is pretty much the same thing as 20. So that brings me to my next point. Taking 1 damage when you have 8 life remaining versus taking 1 damage when you have 20 remaining and it's only turn 1 and they're probably not going to hit you for 19 on the next swing. There's a difference in value there. So, I mean, obviously you can apply everything I just said to, that scenario where it's like, you can go down from, general deck types to specific board state and just narrow it in into the exactly what's going on right there, and then come to the conclusion that you really don't need that life point. Plus, you can counterswing for 2. I mean, that's just stupid. When they can do 1 to you and you can do 2 to them, do 2 to them. Your life total is not the most important thing in the world. But on the flip side, because you guys have heard me say this in another video, your life total isn't just some completely useless expendable resource. People always say it's just another resource in the game. No, it's what's keeping you from losing the game, actually. And I built the most punishing deck on the planet. Basically, if you're running fetch lands and pain lands and shock lands, I am going to win the game, because on turn 4 it consistently swings for exactly 16 to 18 damage. It's Pro Colors green boosting double strike deck, SEAL Team 6. So I almost can't win the game. I mean, it's almost impossible for me to win the game if you're at 20 life and you stay at 20 life. If you want all the way down to 16 by, fetching a bunch of Jund crap and trying to lightning bolt me early and all this other crap, you are absolutely dead because of it. So if a person lost to 18 damage on turn 4, they should probably think, my life total is actually really important because this guy likes to swing super early for a boatload of damage. But then the second game, they don't adjust. I mean, this is modern players. This is people who allegedly know what they're doing. I have had a grand total of 0 people correct their gameplay to beat SEAL Team 6, and that is just pathetic. At the 3 different local gaming stores I've gone to and played Modern at, which actually is probably 4, I have seen 0 people say, hey, I should just wait a turn, have this temple come in tapped, or not temple, whatever the hell they are. I should have this one dual land come in tapped, not take the 2 life hit, because, his deck is fast and I need to make my deck fast, but if I take 2 damage, I'm dead. I mean, you can't stop a double striker with heroic and protection from red and then +8/+8 on him. That doesn't work. And I don't mean that as a euphemism. I mean, you literally cannot stop that creature. It can't be stopped. There's nothing you can do. But there is something you can do. You can stop hitting yourself for 2 freaking damage because I'm only going to hit you for 16 to 18. So you have to look at, what are they playing? Are they playing burn and just every little life point counts because on turn 3 and 4, they're going to try and hit me for like 10 damage apiece. So, I should probably stop using fetch lands. I should probably stop, taking early game swings. I should probably chump block as early as humanly possible and try to eliminate their creatures because every single life point the entire game the next 5 turns is going to be really important. So that final tip is just learn from your opponent, learn what type of deck they're running, and learn how important your life total is in general, just based on the general type of deck, and then after that, consider the board state. If you do that, it'll be really easy, fast decisions about do you block, do you not. And if you watch a lot of the pros play, you'll notice they're like, should I block that? Yeah, no, I'm not going to block it. Just that quick. Some of them take a while, do some math in their head, and they're just rolling it around. But others, you're thinking, ooh, is he going to block or is he not? And then he already made his decision while you're thinking about it. That's because, they know. They considered everything real quick and said, oh yeah, it's really obvious, actually. I don't need to sit there and think about it because I already know what to think about and what to consider. So now you do as well. So hopefully this video helped you out. I know it's a little bit more complex than the other tips, but there really is a lot to it. I mean, one of the basic tenets of Magic is do you block, do you not? But hopefully I broke it down into delicious little bite-sized pieces that you can eat up and make yourself a bigger, better, stronger MTG player. And of course, not one bit of this makes an ounce of difference if you can't shuffle correctly, if you can't randomize your deck in a very random way. So hit that subscribe button because one of my very soon upcoming videos is going to be on how to shuffle properly and why it's detrimental not to. I've got diagrams, I've got math, I've got different colored sleeves, I've got different shuffle tactics, I've got ways to cheat it, ways to catch your opponent cheating. It is going to be the greatest video ever. So definitely hit that subscribe button, you don't want to miss it, and I will see you guys next video.